I just don't understand why the elites are so hell bent on creating a hell world. It's not going to be a hell world for them. They look at you like, look, if you've known, I've known a lot of cattle, not a lot, but I've known a handful of cattle ranchers in my day, and they are, I don't want to say they're like sociopaths, but like they're not animal rights activists. Okay, they look at a cow and they see money, like they don't see a like and look, our whole society is taught that like, oh, cows are basically just walking hamburgers. They're basically stupid. No, when I was doing my Earthship thing, right, there was because the laws in the cattle ranchers were able to get unless it was up to me to keep cows out of my land. And if I didn't put up a fence to keep the cows out, then they were allowed to just trample through my land and whatever. And so I didn't have the money to fence off all of it, but I fenced off at least a part of it, right? So they wouldn't just trample through all my shit. But there was just literal fucking herds of cows that would sometimes get right up on my property. And that was fine. It was actually kind of interesting. And after observing cows for a while, I realized, wow, they're actually not as dumb as I thought. Like I almost kind of feel bad about eating hamburgers now. And one of the most significant moments in that thinking, in that way of thinking, was one day a truck full of cowboys showed up, and they rounded them all up, and herded them up in this corral, and they took a bunch of them off to go get slaughtered. And the ones that remained were trying to find their friends. It was kind of sad, like, because for days they wandered around just mooing, like looking for their friends. And I was just like, damn, like I feel bad. There's like a cow society, and they know that their friends are gone. Like they're not just like these walking hamburgers, And look, they're still dumb, and I still eat hamburgers and steaks. I'm not saying, whatever. But it just made me think like, damn, I don't know if I could. It's kind of like those jobs that you hear about where people, they do experiments on animals, and some of which I think should be banned and should be, I think are totally unnecessary, like cosmetics and stuff like that. But I can see justifying experimenting on animals in certain situations, but I could never be the guy doing it. Like I wouldn't want to be injecting a fucking monkey with AIDS as my job. You know what I mean? And like that's just not for me. These ranchers, these people that deal with animals as an asset, are totally different fucking people. They don't have, in that case, for example, you could even say the guy or girl. In fact, I went on a date once with a woman that, this is when I lived in D.C., her job literally was injecting monkeys with fucking shit all day long. And she laughed about it like it was hysterical. And I'm just like, I hope that this is just your way of coping with it, because you sound evil. Like, yeah, like I never, it was a first and last date, because it was just like, wow, this, you have like a maniacal laughter when you're describing torturing monkeys, like at your job. Like this sounds, you're a horrible person. I would never want you around my children, let alone be half the genetics that create them. But no, these long story short, these people exist, and the ruling class, you have to understand, that's how they look at you. You're not one of their fellow citizens. Are you kidding me? No. You're insects. You're insects. If they have to smash a, you ever see a beekeeper and he's dealing with a beehive and well, beekeeper probably cares more about his bees. But if you see like a beekeeper that's like on an industrial level, not just like a hobbyist or something like that, and they're fucking smashing bees to death when they're closing the tops and stuff, who cares, right? There's like billions of these bees. They're going to make more of them. It's not a big deal. They're killing bees left and right, throughout the day when they're just manipulating the hives and stuff like that. They don't give a fuck. Who cares? There's still going to be enough. And right now, they want to create a world where the cattle or the bees or whatever are easier to manage. And they don't look at you as, you're not people. You're not people. You're just useless eaters. And what they want to do is engineer a world where you're not even participating. They want to engineer a world where they are they're all the things that you're around to do now, because they need you right now, right? There's certain things that just need to get done, and so having you around is mostly more of a benefit than it is a negative. But automation's changing that. And the more we automate, the more they don't need you. And so they want to create a world where only the good people, only the people, not us, we're not people, but only the people exist. They want to lower the population to a drastically lower number. And their bloodlines will live in harmony with the other elite bloodlines. And they'll be they'll be weighted on hand and foot by robots. And the technologies will be created to make you obsolete. And so they'll get rid of you. All right, let's take a look here. Why not live in a world that is safe and clean with no favelas or gated compounds? I'm just missing something. There's something greater they gain, I guess, from creating this mutt consumer class. Yeah, well, they're creating easier to manage cattle. They don't care. Look, long term, they feel like, I think they feel like the technology is moving fast enough now to where your existence, you're going to be obsolete in just really, it's right around the corner. So long term, they don't have to worry about you that much. Like they're not thinking, like in 100 years, I think they think in 100 years, you're gone. We don't need you in 100 years, and maybe sooner. I think probably not sooner. I think that they might think that just because they always think technology. They always look at every movie about the future that was made in the 80s. When you look at the date, and it's like in 2001. Like Skynet was supposed to have already happened like 10 years ago or something like that. Like I don't remember when that was supposed to happen. But the movie itself, 2001. I mean, all this stuff they thought they were going to have, it's ridiculous. And that's how a lot of these technocrats think. They think this shit's like right around the corner. And it never is. So they probably need us for another 100 years or so. But I could understand that a lot of them thinking they only need you for like 30. I think the Earth poles are going to flip and it's going to start over. It's possible. I know a lot of people who know more than I do who think that the poles are going to flip. Whether or not that's going to, restart the world, I don't know. But I know it'll wreak havoc on some technologies. Someone said something about bees, but it went by too fast. Hunters are worse than the ranchers or beekeepers. I'd say they're about the same. I think beekeepers are, again, the hobbyist beekeepers care a lot about their bees. And in the same way that like a homestead would care a lot more about like their cow, right? They would probably name it and even like, be kind to it and stuff like that. But I'm talking like ranchers that are like it's like an industrial scale, where they just have tons of cows, clomping around in their own shit, just lined up. Everyone's driven by a dairy or something like that. Like I'm talking like ranchers like that. Those guys, it's just a milk machine or a steak machine, or whatever. Hunters, people that hunt for sport, I don't understand. I think that might be a little more sociopathic than maybe the cattle ranchers. And maybe you could even say there's something analogous to that in the ruling class, right? The average ruling class person might see you as cattle, and so they don't want to damage you as long as you're useful, but by and large, they don't really give a fuck about you, right? As long as they can keep you alive, as long as you're useful, that's all they care about. But then you might have like an elite that's kind of more analogous to a hunter. who just wants to hunt you for sport. I don't mean like kidnap you at your house and release you on some island and then hunt you down, although I wouldn't be surprised if that happens on a more regular basis than anyone's willing to admit. But I mean on a grand scale, there might be sociopaths that get off on body counts, on like on conflicts and wars and stuff like that. You know, what do you give a man that has everything? You give him a war.
Prosecution of felon, gangster, mafiotic, negroidic, the Black Frank Gelada, a gangster judge, therefore unprosecutable. The blackish, menial, negroidic in appearance and demeanor, felon, vicious, parroting puppet, ex-district attorney, Nassau County, can watch my Frankenstein eyesight television playback of this felonious, lowly, sodomistic display by the felon, sodomist Judge William Sullivan and his lowly felon slut wife during my trial in Nassau.